Hello, Math Studies students. Welcome to another online lesson. Today we're continuing our topic on statistics, and rather than just arranging data and identifying variables as we've done for the last several lessons, we're actually going to do some math. And most of it's review. We're talking about mean, median, and mode today, but we're dealing with it in a slightly fresh way. To give a little review here and define what these terms mean, the arithmetic average obtained by adding all the scores and dividing by the total number of scores. So really these are all averages, but when we talk average, most of the time people are talking about the mean. And so you add all the scores up and you divide by how many scores you had. So if you've got a test of, say, 100 and a test of 85, or let's go something simpler. Let's go with 50. You add those two tests up, and you had 2 tests, so you divide by that. So you get 150 in the numerator divided by 2, which equals 75. That's an example of mean. Mode, well, we've already talked about modal a few times, which is the adjective form of this. And so mode is whatever occurs most often. It's not the number of times that it occurs, so it's not the frequency count, it's just whatever it is. So if the number 5 occurred 17 times, then that was the most, then that is the mode. It's possible to have a set of data where there's more than one mode, where 2 things occurred the same amount of times, but it still has to be the most. And it's also possible to have no mode, where nothing occurred more than once. And then we have median. Median's a very useful and yet often overlooked way of sort of averaging things. And we can talk in class more about why it's so useful, I think. But it's the middle scores after they've all been arranged from smallest to largest, or theoretically the other way around. But if they're all in order, smallest to largest. And if you have 2 that would then be in the middle, like if you have an even number of things, for example, if I have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and I want to know what the median of that group is, but there's nothing actually in the middle, I would average the 2 and the 3 together, and that would end up being 2.5 for my median. All right, so nothing new there. Now, how am I going to make it fresh for math studies? So for this first example here, I'm giving you a frequency table. I want you to find the mean, median, and mode of this data. If you'd like to try it on your own, I encourage it. Pause the video and give it a shot. A calculator might be helpful here for these problems, so I'm going to pull mine out ahead of time. And the first thing we want to know is how much data do we have? Well, for example, there's a bunch of scores here. How many ones did we have? Well, we had 3 of them. So far, we're already talking about 3 things, and we've only looked at one score, a score of 1. How about a score of 2? Well, there were 7 more of those, just for a score of 2. So how many things have we looked at so far? If you think cumulative frequency, we're already up to 10 different scores that we've looked at. I could write them out. I have 1, and then another 1, and another 1, and then those 7 2s. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. 10 numbers so far. And then we have 3. How many 3s? Oh, we have 12 of them. Well, I'm not going to write out 12 3s. But it's because of that, that's why we do the frequency table, because I don't want to write all this stuff out. But we need to figure out how many numbers are actually here. So if we keep a running total, well, we can just add it up. Well, actually, I see that this is already 10 right there, and then this becomes another 20 there, and then I've got this becomes another 20, and this becomes 20, and then I have 10 here, and that'll be a little bit easier to add. So all of this is 50, 30 more, 80. So that was a quick way for me to add all these together, just looking for things that I could do to add up to be 10. Using your calculator is fine as well. Old school addition would also be just fine. But our grand total is 80. So there's 80 different scores. Now we have to add them all up. So how many numbers would I have to add up if I literally just added everything? Well, there's 80 numbers, so I would have to add up all 80 of them. I don't want to add up all 80 of them. We invented multiplication so I don't have to add the numbers over and over again. So we go back and we say, well, how many, I could add up, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus the 2 plus the 2, so on and so forth, and add up all 80 numbers, but that'll take longer than I care to do. So again, how many ones were there being added? 3. So just take this 3 here times the 1. So I can write that as 3 times 1. And then we had the 7 times the 2. So plus 7 times 2. 12 times 3. You might say, oh, this is taking forever, but it's not really nearly as long as it would take us if we did this by adding every single number. And 5 times 5. And maybe you could do these in your head and you wouldn't even have to write some of these down. 11 times 6. 7 times 4. 10 times 8. Times 8, I'm sorry. I'm running out of room here, so I'm actually going to jump off to the front here. So 8 times 9. And last but not least, 12 times 10. I'm going to add up all of those numbers. And again, I'm going to divide by 80. And we should get, the numerator comes out to be 476. So we'll have 476, still over that 80. And when we divide that, we get 5.95. And that is our mean. If we look at that, is it reasonable? Well, our data goes from 1 to 10. 5.95 is, you know, in the middle-ish, which makes sense. Our data is distributed in a way where, you know, there's large numbers scattered throughout. So that's mean. Let's go to median. As we just talked about, there are 80 pieces of data. If you have 80 pieces of data and we wrote them all out, like let's think of if we just had like 4 pieces of data and we had, say, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, which one would be the median? Well, the median is the middle. 4 pieces of data, cut that in 2, there's 2, but our middle is actually right in between the second and the third one. So what if we had 6 pieces of data? Okay, so now we have 5 and 6. 6 pieces of data. Again, 6, half of 6 is 3. Well, you've got 1, 2, 3 numbers, and it would be right after the third one. So right after the third one, the average of the third and the fourth one. Well, now what happens if we have 80 pieces of data? All right, well, 80 pieces of data, we divide it by 2. That means there's 2 groups of 40. The first 40 numbers and the second 40 numbers. We want the last one of the first group and the next one after that, so the 40th and the 41st numbers. Well, the first 3 numbers were all 1s. The next 7 were all 2s. So far we've looked at 10. If we do a cumulative frequency going on here, we have 3 and then 10. And then we've got 12 number 3s. And so if we add 12 on there, we're up to 22. Well, again, we're looking to find the first 40 numbers. So then we have 8 more 4s. So that brings us up to 30 numbers. And then we have 5 5s, which brings us up to 35. And then we have 11 6s. Now, 11 plus 35 gets me all the way up until 46. So 46 numbers have come and gone, and everything from the 36th number all the way to the 46th number were 11s. I'm looking for the 40th number and the 41st number. Well, since the 46th number, the 45th, the 44th, so on and so forth, all the way back down to the 36th number were all 11s, I know that the median is 11. So less work, but maybe we need to talk about that more next time. But anyway, that is median. So then we're left with mode. Mode of our data is the one that occurs the most often. And the frequency tells us how often it occurred. Well, I see that this one occurred 12 times, and I see that this one occurred 12 times. Whoops, down here. And none occurred more than that. And so I don't want to write 12. 12 is not my mode. 12 is the occurrence, or the frequency. So what occurred 12 times? 3 occurred 12 times, and 10 occurred 12 times. So I have 2 modes. It's 3 and 10. And that is mode. Again, you can have more than one, and you can have none if they all occur the same time. Usually one, that's the case. But here we had multiple things occur multiple times. All right, for our last example, we're given a set of data here. It has a mean of 8. We're supposed to find the value of n. Well, if the mean is 8, that means that if I add all the numbers and divide by how many numbers there are, I will get the mean. So what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 numbers. So something divided by 14 is equal to my mean. And that something is, my mean is 8. So now I need to add up all these numbers. I need to add up the 5, the 11, the 12, the 16, 3, 2, 5, 18, 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, and then of course n. And I will use that to set up my equation. I'm going to plug all those into my calculator here. And I end up with a total of 95. So all these numbers add up to 95. Let me erase here so that you can see the numbers better. They add up to 95 plus the n. Again, adding all these up, it's 95 plus we need to add on the n. And now we've got a nice little algebra problem. We can solve it in 2 steps. We want to get our variable alone. So the first thing we should do is get rid of this 14. The way we can do that is multiply both sides by 14. Which will get us 112. So we have 95 plus n equals 112. Subtract 95 from both sides to get rid of, or to get the variable alone. And what does that leave us with? 17, I believe. Yep, 17. So n equals 17. It was the second biggest number of the bunch. All right, so now we know that n equals 17. Now we're looking for our mode. You know, it's really nice if you list them in order, and then you can really see which ones are repeating. So maybe I will go ahead and do that. Again, we have 14 numbers. Shouldn't take us too long here. So I'm going to start with the lowest. I see a 1 there. Do that. Look for 2s. I've got a 2 there, a 2 there. So 2 2s. I've got a 3, another 3, 2 3s. I don't see any 4s. There are 2 5s. I don't see any 6s or 7s. I have an 8. I have a single 9. 8, 9. No 10s. I've got 11, 12. 11, 12. And then 16, 17, and 18. I'm going to count them all up to make sure I have all 14 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They're all there. And I had a few repeats. I had the 2s repeat. I had the 3s repeat. The 5s repeat. None repeated more than twice, but they all repeated the same amount. So our mode is actually 3 this time. Our mode is 2, 3, and 5. Those numbers all repeated. And then finally, the median. Once again, we're stuck with an even number of terms. You can use that halfway trick. If you have 14 numbers, halfway is 7. So I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That cuts it right down the middle there. And so that 7th term and the one after it are what I need to average. So 5 plus 8 divided by 2, which gives me 13 halves, and that would be a fine answer, or you can write 6.5. And that is our median. Now, I see some people would, sort of do like the slash, and knock them off from each side, and that's cool too, but the problem with that is when you start dealing with very large groups of numbers, it takes a little bit more time, and so if you can do that halfway method, that should make your life easier. All right, there are problems in the book. On page 172, problems listed there, 3, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16. Good luck, and we will see you next time.